So, Rick, would the Sixers be better without Ben Simmons? Would they be better without Ben?
Yes, they would. And I know that in trading him, they're not going to get the same talent back. It's not going to be equal. It's going to be pennies on the dollar in terms of the return. But it's going to be addition by subtraction, because this is the difficulty when you have a great player. And Ben Simmons is capable of being great, but you just never know when he's going to be great. And oftentimes he's not great. In fact, he's invisible when you need him most. And that puts you in a difficult position. I would rather have a lesser player who I know what I'm going to get from him on a consistent basis than I don't know what I'm going to get. I don't know when Ben Simmons is going to be willing to shoot. I don't know when he's going to be willing or able to make free throws. I don't know when he's going to be aggressive or non-aggressive simply as a playmaker. The last 3 playoff games, he scored in single digits. It got to the point where Doc Rivers had him bring up the ball and then basically go to the dunker position, and you had Seth Curry or Tobias Harris running your offense. That's far from ideal if you're talking about trying to win a championship. By taking him out of the equation, this now puts more on Joel Embiid. He's essentially the last piece of the Sam Hinkie process. And to make good on that, then Joel Embiid is going to have to deliver and step up in a way that he was still trying to tiptoe and manage things and do it along with Ben Simmons. So are they going to get the same kind of talent back when they move him? No. He was a former Defensive Player of the Year, 3-time All-Star, all of that. He's all of that for a reason. But if you're talking about winning and winning on the highest level, sometimes taking a guy away who is just, you're uncertain about what you're going to get and when you're going to get it, it can be a plus. And I just think overall the Philadelphia 76ers will be a more balanced, confident team, knowing that they're not looking over at Ben and thinking, okay, is he or isn't he? That's not a good place for a team gunning for a championship to be.
Unfortunately, I've got to disagree, Rick. No, they're not going to be better without Ben Simmons. You talk about confidence and, looking over their shoulder. They were the #1 seed in the East with Ben Simmons. #1 seed in the East.
Regular season.
Yes, they were the best team in the East in the regular season. I thought the Nets didn't really play for it, but the Sixers got the #1 seed. And as usual, Joel Embiid missed about 20 games. So we can basically pencil him in for missing 20 games every year because he's always hurt. Rick, I just wonder who's going to fill that void. Okay, as you said, they're not going to be able to get equal value. So now you're removing an all-NBA player who is first-team all-defense the last 2 years, can guard 5 positions. He can play 1 through 5 defensively, guard any of those positions. Where are you getting that in return? This idea that all of a sudden, oh, yeah, Tobias Harris will just step up. I mean, he's one of the most overpaid players in the league.
Oh, wow.
Joel Embiid is always hurt. To get a guy like Kyle Lowry, which I think would be a catastrophic error on their part, you got to lose some of your nice shooters like Seth Curry. Rick, I just don't see this team getting further. You mentioned the process. Listen, I was all for the process. I love the idea. In theory, it sounded great. It has been a terrible failure, an epic failure, in fact. And they're not going to win a championship. They missed Jimmy Butler. They've made bad move after bad move. I am a Ben Simmons guy. Him and his buddies work out at my gym in the offseason. So I do I'm not friends with them, but I know people in their orbit. I'm a Ben Simmons fan. I'm rooting for him. It's clear the guy has not put in the work shooting the basketball, improving his free throws. A little disappointing. I do think he will survive elsewhere, but the Sixers are done. Once they trade Ben Simmons, unless they get Damian Lillard, it's over.
Well, I'll say they're better off without Ben Simmons, even though they're not additioning with the subtraction of him. I hate to do this because he's dealing with injury. Shout out to Carson Wentz. I hope your foot gets better. But this is a lot like the Carson Wentz situation that played out with the Philadelphia Eagles, ironically the same city. This is a breakdown in terms of trust amongst players and the coaching staff. The players don't trust Ben Simmons at this point. I don't know that Ben Simmons trusts the players. I don't think that Doc Rivers and the rest of the coaching staff trust Ben Simmons. And I don't think that Ben Simmons trusts them. And I think it all played out right in front of our faces in the playoffs this year. Yes, they had a good regular season. In fact, the best regular season. But in that time, there's so many games. There are a lot of ills and a lot of things that can be kind of, brushed under the rug, so to speak, while pushing towards getting to the playoffs. If there's one thing that I've learned watching the NBA and watching it closely over the last few years, whatever it is that your Achilles heel is going to be, teams are going to work their darndest to be able to expose that. And what we saw with the 76ers in this year's playoffs is that Ben Simmons was actually the biggest liability that other teams exposed and took advantage of during the playoffs this year. So with that being said, even if they're not better without him in terms of who replaces him, there still may be the idea of fresh starts for both of them from one another. Ben Simmons having a fresh start to possibly get his confidence back and knowing that he needs to work on some aspects of his game, and the 76ers fresh start and knowing that they can actually move forward and try to figure out how do they replace the void of Ben Simmons with someone else without sliding back too far in what they've been able to create, I think is ultimately the best path for them at this point in time for both sides in this scenario.
And we can look at the Milwaukee Bucks as a referendum on where the Philadelphia 76ers could go. Do they have as good of a regular season? No. The Milwaukee Bucks had the best record over the last couple of years, certainly in the Eastern Conference. And where did it ultimately get them? They slid down. They made some changes. They adjusted their team. They weren't as good a regular season team, but they were a better postseason team. I could see the Philadelphia 76ers doing the exact same thing in moving on from Ben Simmons. And the bar's not set that high because it's what? They need to get to the second round. Without Ben Simmons, I think they're still capable of that. You are right, J-Mac, in that when Joel Embiid was out, then Ben Simmons was capable of carrying the load. But much like we've talked about the Lakers, that's the same thing working for the Lakers. Like if LeBron misses time and you have Russ Westbrook, you know what? You can survive during the regular season. But it comes down to how those pieces work in the postseason. Yeah. How much do they complement each other when the game is on the line? That determines the true excellence of your team.
But Rick, hold on.
I don't know if they can get pieces that are going to fit better, but they can't get pieces that
Rick,
fit
the
worse.
Bucks,
because Ben Simmons didn't fit with Joel Embiid.
I don't like the analogy. The Bucks flipped Eric Bledsoe, who's a negative asset, for Drew Holiday, who is a massive upgrade. If you can find me the trade where you get Ben Simmons out and you bring in someone that's equal of Ben or greater, I'll love it. And I think I will agree with you. The problem is that deal does not exist. All reports claim that right now the Sixers are asking for heaven and the stars and the sun and everything
which they're
out
not
there.
Gonna get.
And they're not getting. I mean, they asked the Warriors for like 15 draft picks. Golden State hung up the phone on them. I don't know, other than Damian Lillard or Bradley Beal, where do you see a player who can have a Drew Holiday type impact on the Bucks on the Sixers? And I look around the league like who Zach LaVine? Like I don't know I don't know where we're looking.
No, there is a difficulty there. And then, people have talked about C.J. McCollum. I know you've knocked down the idea of C.J. McCollum.
He's a nice
Portland Trailblazers wouldn't even make that deal. So it gives you an idea of where Philadelphia is in terms of what they could get. But if I got a C.J. McCollum, if I got a guy that I knew that when he's open, he's going to shoot and has the capability of making the shot, I'm ahead of the game when it comes to where the Philadelphia 76ers are right now. Because essentially what they have to rely on in these playoffs is that Seth Curry and Joel Embiid were their big two. Now, no offense to Seth Curry, but I should be able to find someone who's going to do a bit better than Seth Curry is capable of doing, simply because of the lack of size and athleticism that he has. And maybe this pushes Tobias Harris to live up to his contract in a way that he hasn't before.
Yeah. I mean, listen.
Tobias stepped up in the playoffs.
First of all, I don't mean to diminish or say anything negative about C.J. McCollum, who everybody loves in the media. He's a really nice player. Rick, the guy's maybe, a one-time All-Star. He doesn't play a ton of defense. He's a really good offensive player. But on those 20 games when Joel
Ben
Embiid
Simmons
is out,
is a 3-time All-Star.
Right.
So what?
We're
Ben
talking
Simmons
about
is
he's
an
better off being
All-NBA
gone.
player, first-team All-Defense. Tell me, can C.J. McCollum carry this team when the 20 games that Embiid is out? Can they get to 500 with C.J.
I don't
McCollum?
care. I don't care about the regular season. I don't care about the regular
Really?
season.
You don't care about getting a high
Yes,
seed in
I'll
the
finish.
playoffs?
I will finish. We just had the Bucks finish third in the East. Who ended up winning?
Well, Bucks got a little lucky due to injuries. But I'm just telling you, C.J. McCollum is absolutely not going to do it. If I'm the Sixers, I'm not
Hello,
doing that. I'd rather
J-Mac.
keep Ben Simmons.